Well, well, well. So here we are. I didn't think we would find ourselves back in this spot, but again, here we are. So, back on December 7th, based on what I show here, I uploaded an episode called The Finale, where I basically put my microphone away. Not only here, but also on Patreon. So, at the time, it was a really, really tough time for me, and there were some major changes going on in my life, and um, it just didn't feel like something that I could continue to do, not wholeheartedly, because I couldn't divest myself fully into it. And the reason for that is there was so much going on within me, life wise, work wise, relationship wise, everything, that I didn't know if I could focus long enough to record the podcast. So, things have changed to a certain extent, and I feel better. I will say that. It took, we're 5 months here, and it took a lot. Therapy was very important. Um, Mending broken fences, fixing relationships with a lot of people. Um, Learning that you don't always have to be in a intimate romantic relationship. Sometimes it's okay to exist alone. And that doesn't mean you don't love the person or anything like that. It just means that you have to understand when it's time to let go, that it's time to let go. And then maybe you can revisit the situation at a later date. Um, and hopefully that's still something that's on the table. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here simply because I'm back. Now, I got back to work on Patreon months ago. There was just this itch, because I'm a guy that makes content. And I was like, no, I'm just going to stick to Patreon, no YouTube, no podcast servers or anything like that. And then I'm like, well, it's game season, and I do tend to get views during game season when I cover the major trade shows. So I will be covering those, obviously. Summer Games Fest is Friday, June 7th. Xbox Game Showcase is Sunday, June 9th, with the Call of Duty Showcase to follow directly after that. Ubisoft Forward is Monday, June 10th, which is my birthday. We don't know when the PlayStation Showcase is going to be. It's just a rumor. There is going to be a Nintendo Direct at some point, so I will be covering that. I'm going to cover all of this stuff, and I will report it. This is going to be a once-a-week show. There will not be a week in gaming or anything like that. And then another show we're going to do once a week here. Just once a week, the Derrick Lamon experience. That's all it's going to be. If I don't have anything to talk about, there'll be shorter episodes, or there may not be an episode. I don't know. I haven't figured that all out yet. But I am ready to get back to doing drops here on Spotify and Apple and YouTube and Amazon, etc., etc. I'm going to enjoy it. This is a new branch of our journey, so we're going to try some new things out here, and there may be some guests and things like that, and I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to this, so we're going to see how this goes. But if you're looking for the Week in Gaming, you're going to need to find that on Patreon. If you're looking for College Football Weekly when we get to the fall, you're going to need to find that on Patreon. When I had something, game streaming is going to come back to Twitch shortly. Trying to get that under control now, but I'm almost there. I think, I've got everything I need except for one thing, so we're just about there. We're almost ready to go back to Twitch. So I've just been putting the pieces of everything back together to give you guys the content that I think that some of you really did enjoy and some of you really did deserve. So for everybody who stuck with me during the dark patch, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it. This time away Gave me time to reflect. It gave me time to miss the medium, you know? It gave me time to go away and give people a reason. Like, some people were like, well, why don't you do the podcast anymore? I went searching. Somebody's like, I just wanted to hear your voice because we hadn't talked so long. And I was like, let me pull up the podcast. And there wasn't an episode and da 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 da. I'm like, that's interesting. I didn't know that anybody was still listening. But there are some people who actually do like the sound of my voice and do like to hear what I have to say. So, um, I'm ready to come back. I'm ready to come back. So, having said that, I'm going to get right down to brass tacks really, really quickly. I guess the most intriguing thing that has happened as of late has been this Drake versus Kendrick beef. I covered it a little bit on Patreon, um, so I'm not going to go greatly into detail here. So this was something I saw last night on X, formerly Twitter, but I still call it Twitter, and I still call it tweeting. Nobody calls it posting, but whatever. So somebody was like, be honest, do you think that Drake actually has an album as good or as better as Good Kid Mad City? Does Drake even have a classic? And to that I would say this. Number one, this is not the first time we've heard this argument. We have heard this argument in the past. There's just different participants. This is the modern day Michael Jackson versus Prince argument. And people will be like, no, no, it's not. No. Stop and think for just a second. Really stop and think for a second. And then you're going to understand what I'm saying. Prince wrote, produced, and performed his records. Mike wrote quite a few of his records, but Quincy was the main producer. Prince played generally each instrument, most of the time, most of the instruments on his records, live instrumentation. Sheila E. played some drums. There's some other people. The Revolution, the New Power Generation, all that stuff. But Prince, like, sunk his teeth into those records, right? So when you're talking about artist versus performer, I think that Mike is a great artist, but I would call him the performer in this instance, to which I would call Prince the artist in this instance, right? But they're both phenomenal at what they do. Now, fast forward here to 2024. Drake is phenomenal at what he does. Kendrick Lamar is absolutely phenomenal at what he does. They don't need to be the same. To say that Drake doesn't have a classic album is absolutely ridiculous. Because if Take Care wasn't the album that it was, who's to say he even gets a third album after that? Remember, around the time Drake got signed to Cash Money, Young Money, there were a lot of people who got signed to those labels. Nicki, Tyga, Drake, most of Young Money, and then guys like Jay Sean and other people. How many of those people have you heard albums from? Tyga still consistently puts out music, not at the clip that Drake does. Nobody puts out music at the clip that Drake does. Nicki still puts out music. Nicki, Wayne, and Drake became, at that time, the big three because they stood the test of time, right? So I would compare, and I don't think Drake would have a problem with this, I would compare Drake to Michael Jackson because that's who he was chasing. When he got the number one record to pass Michael, he posted on his Instagram story him wearing the white glove. I think it was like a glass of white Zinfandel wine or something like that. I've been doing a Degrassi rewatch, and by the way, if you want to watch it, Degrassi: The Next Generation is available on the Degrassi YouTube channel. And there's the episode, I think it's the second season, where they're at the dance and Drake dresses up as Michael Jackson. So I think all of this is actually foreshadowing. He wanted to be Mike. Not in the sense of being Mike like all the crap that people said about Mike, but Michael Jackson was the biggest star in the world at one point. And without effort of the last few years, you'd have to argue that Drake quite possibly is the biggest star in the world. It's parallel to where people thought that Prince made art. And Prince did make art, and Mike made art too. Let's not get it confused. Well, when you make that comparison in this modern day setting, Drake makes albums. Kendrick makes art. That's what people say. And that's my opinion. So they're like, well, no, Drake doesn't have anything as good as Good Kid Mad City. And he's not supposed to. Drake and Kendrick are two completely different artists, okay? Let's think about their most heralded albums. Good Kid Mad City. And you can even put To Pimp a Butterfly in that conversation as well, in my opinion. I know a lot of people would not feel the same way, but I do. So let's think about it. Good Kid Mad City is a conceptual album. It's not supposed to have a bunch of hit records that play at top 40 and stuff like that. That's why you got the singles, um, Poetic Justice, um, Swimming Pools Drank, and then the recipe technically was it was on the deluxe version of the album, but it was the first record that was released during the rollout, the promo for the album, right? Those are radio records. The rest of the album is all like deep, deep album cuts. Take Care had radio records and album cuts. Now, again, Good Kid, Mad City is a conceptual album at its absolute core. It's about the day in the life of a kid from Compton, right? And it's told not only through the songs but through the skits of his mother and father on his voicemail. Kendrick, bring the car back. I'm trying to go to the county building. These kids ready to eat. Shit, I'm ready to eat. Is that Kendrick on the phone? Ask him about my dominoes. Your daddy want to talk to you about the dominoes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Keep losing my dominoes. We gonna have to go in the backyard and squab, homie. Like, and then one of his friends getting shot and them getting high and stuff like that. And then we gonna drop Kendrick off at Shireen's house and Master Splinter, aka Shireen's daughter, being the first song in the album. It is a conceptual album. It's a story that's told out from beginning to end. Whereas Take Care is a thematic album. Take Care is not essentially a story, but it is about going back home and finding yourself after finding success. When Drake was on Degrassi and they started incorporating him doing music into more episodes. There's the episode where Jimmy kind of saves Ashley's performance and goes on stage and raps, right? He was getting so deep into hip hop that the producers told him, "Look, you got to decide. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So is it going to be acting or rapping?" He chose rapping. And a lot of people were like, "This is not going to work out for him. Nobody's going to respect a rapper from Canada." And that's a lot of shit that we've heard. Like, let's not get it confused. A lot of people have said that. Yeah, but Drake's from Canada. Yeah, but Drake was on Degrassi. Yeah, I don't know how serious I can take this guy. That's where a lot of the flack comes from. Let's be completely honest. Drake at the very beginning was this humble guy who not only rapped but could sing, who was known to write poetry for women and stuff like that. And then after a while, he starts hanging out in Atlanta too much, and all of a sudden he's this trap rapper. And I think that's where he gets a lot of his criticism from, because a lot of people don't truly believe in that or understand how you could pivot that hard. Because the point of some people make music simply for the art, and those are the people who have a hard drive full of a bunch of songs that nobody will probably ever hear. That's art. Most people who make music are trying to be a recording artist and get themselves out of a situation. They're looking for money. They're looking for the fame. Anybody in the hood who's really steeped in it, they're trying to get the fuck out of the hood. Whereas he's gotten money, fame, and then wanted to be recognized by the hood and in the hood. Drake has been to St. Louis multiple times to chill with Sexy Red. She's had quite the year, but she's still living in the hood, as evidence of the Rich Baby Daddy video where the sink was broken. She had Drake come to St. Louis in the hood to film the Rich Baby Daddy video, and the sink was legit broken. They could have filmed that video elsewhere. So again, when I talk about Take Care, again, this is a thematic album, and the themes are this. You're returning home because you've been gone for a couple of years. Drake, So Far Gone came out February of 2009, and he was pretty much on the road from that point. Range Rover, Rolls Royce Phantom, condo in Miami. Yes, in the I'm on one video where Drake is performing his verse and they're in that condo and it's like all the OVO crew with him. That was his actual condo in Miami, right down the street from what was formerly called American Airlines Arena, home of the Miami Heat. But that was his condo. Now imagine they said you couldn't do it because you were Canadian and nobody's really going to go for a rapper that sings, because remember, we've done this already. Nelly kind of harmonized and Ja Rule was the king of it. And, well, people got tired of that stick pretty quickly, didn't they? Okay, so this isn't going to work. And also, we can't believe you're a rapper. You were Jimmy Brooks, who was in the wheelchair. I remember having a conversation with my cousin, and he was like, this dude is dope. Like, this nigga Drake is dope, but I just can't believe it because he was on Degrassi. You know, which he's never shied away from, which is really, really cool. Respect who you are, respect where you come from, never forget where you come from, respect your roots. And Degrassi's a great show, by the way. The Next Generation is great. Um, so this Canadian boy leaves Canada, and he's just this guy who he was like he said, he made very little money doing Canadian television. Nobody cared who Aubrey Drake Graham was, except he's Aubrey Graham who plays Jimmy Brooks on Degrassi. So he's a local celebrity. Imagine leaving, going and doing this music thing, and then coming back and being one of Canada's favorite sons. Like he's up there with Wayne Gretzky and Bret Hart at this point. So much that we've seen Wayne Gretzky do ads for OVO for Drake's clothing line, and I'm pretty sure we've seen Bret Hart do one as well. So he's now among those guys. So the point of Take Care is it's a thematic album. He said I had to go back home to make this album. I had to go back to Canada. I had to go back to Toronto to make this album. So now you're going back to cold days and even colder nights. The women that you used to love, since you've been gone, they've moved on because they can't believe that now you're a successful rapper and you're around Lil Wayne and Rick Ross and Jay-Z and whoever else, that you can't have any woman you want, especially when your songs are topping the charts at the moment, right? So the women you loved, you go back home and they're not hearing it anymore. You got all this money, but they're just not, they've moved on. They found love in other places. So how do you reconcile that with your heart as well as your mind? And then also reconcile the fact that you were broke when you left here and now you've got quite a bit of money. And now you're the supreme breadwinner for your family, for your group of friends as well. Take Care is about opulence. It's about returning home. It's about opulence and decadence. Look at the album cover. The candelabra and all that stuff and the art and just the mood of the album cover itself. He returned home. But home wasn't the same. Home wasn't the same as a result of him changing. Not changing like, oh, I don't want to be that kid anymore. Changing that you were just this kid that was on a Canadian television show, and now you're one of the top recording artists in the world. North America at that point for certain. You've been on dates with Rihanna. You've got songs with Jay-Z. You've got songs with Rick Ross. You've got songs with Lil Wayne and Nicki Minaj. You couldn't be any hotter. Drake was as hot as fish grease when he went back to Toronto to record Take Care. And now you can have anything you want in the world because you have the money. But the one thing you can't really have is the love that you sought from those women. Because they moved on because you went away. How do you make that come out? Well, you create an album like Take Care. It's thematic from beginning to end. Over My Dead Body is the perfect opening for that album. And it's really a ride. It takes you on a ride all the way to the end of the standard version of the album, The Ride. And then YOLO, the motto and stuff like that. The Real Her. Like the voicemail from his grandmother on Look What You've Done For Me. All of that is steeped. It is a very thematic album. So I say all that to say this. We're coming back around to the point. And I'm sorry if I got long-winded. I'm trying not to. But this is the point, you guys. They're not supposed to make the same music because they don't come from the same environments. Kendrick is from Compton. Drake is from Toronto. And that's no shade to Toronto because there's some niggas in Toronto that do get busy. But when you think of Compton, you think NWA. You think straight out of Compton. When you think Toronto, I always think Toronto Maple Leafs, Toronto Blue Jays, Vince Carter. Because I'm a sports guy. But there's some parts of Toronto that do get dark and do get hairy. They're not supposed to make the same music. Their environment and their upbringing is completely different. One of them is making art. They were both able to take their families out of the situations they were in, and they should both be applauded for that. And they were both able to help the people around them, and they should be applauded for that. And I think that's where it should stop. I don't think that we should not continue to compare them. Now, if you're going to ask me in totality, yeah, I do feel like Kendrick is the better lyricist. There's always going to be that stigma about Drake because when you have that many reference tracks leak, it's not good. You've never heard anybody say they wrote Big's lines. You've never heard anybody say they wrote Jay's lines. You've never heard anybody say they wrote Pac's lines, Nas' lines, etc., etc. Drake was always chasing those men because they were the goats of hip hop. When Meek revealed on Twitter that Drake didn't write his own raps, and then the reference records came out, yeah, a lot of that shit looked really nuts. And that's why, as an artist, I have him as one of my greatest artists of all time. As one of the rappers, I have him quite low on my list because I don't know how much of this you actually wrote, and that is a problem for me as a hip hop enthusiast. That is a problem for me. It had the reference tracks never came out, had Meek never said what he said, and we all thought that Drake wrote every single one of those bars, he would be up there for me. He'd be in my top 10 for sure. But I can't put him that high because I don't know if he actually wrote all of that shit. And that for me is an issue. So when we're having this conversation, who's the superior lyricist? Well, I would have to say Kendrick. As far as the diss records that came out, I didn't like Push-Ups. I've been very vocal about that. I did like Family Matters. I liked the second and third verse on Family Matters. I loved them. The Heart Part 6, had he not taken the stance that he did about, oh, I'm too famous, if I was raping little girls or dating underage girls, somebody would know. Not raping, I'm sorry, he didn't say that. But if I was messing with underage girls, I'd be in jail by now. Well, look at what Puff's going through. And he's been doing this for 30 years. Look at what Harvey Weinstein went through. Look at what Bill Cosby went through. So there's no guarantee that you're going to get caught. So I think that was a bad stance to take. I think he really did think that everybody being like, no, he still got something else. No, because it would have came by now. Family Matters was supposed to be the quote unquote red button, was supposed to be the nuclear warhead. That's why he posted the red button meme, and that's why Maul posted the nuclear fallout shelter sign. That was supposed to be the one to end Kendrick. However, Kendrick said in Euphoria, I can already predict which angle you're going to take, all this stuff. Don't tell no lies about me, and I won't tell truths about you. Don't go there. We can keep this cool. Just don't go there. And Drake went there. Because when you're the biggest artist in the world, you can take that risk. He took that risk. He went there, and Kendrick stepped on it 20, 30 minutes later. 30 minutes later. And then to find out he had all that stuff recorded, and he would go back and change things based on how he thought things would play out. Do I think the suitcase being planted is real? I don't know. Drake's saying that the people you got your information from are clowns, and then saying we planted the fake information to you. That's extremely contradictory. So there's a lot of people who are super duper Drake fans not fans, stans running around saying Kendrick's stupid, he fell for it. Buddy, the man said it himself. He's confusing himself, and he's confusing a lot of you, or you're just not paying attention because you love him so much. There's people literally on Twitter right now saying that Drake is the greatest thing to happen in hip-hop, and he's the biggest influence on hip-hop, and that's not even remotely true. He is extremely talented. He is the best artist of his generation. But he's not Nas. He's not Pac. He's not Big. He's not Jay. He's never going to be. And for the fact of the matter, Kendrick isn't going to be either. He can get pretty close. Cole could have got pretty close. I don't know how that one plays out now for obvious reasons, but I just think it's been a moot argument. And when Drake posted, that was fun. Summer Vibes up next. Okay. I just don't want to hear any more darts. I don't want to hear any more subs, any shots or anything like that. Just let it go. You've had 4 battles in your career. You're 2-2. You're 500. That's a respectable record. You asked LeBron if he would rather be 4-10 overall in the NBA Finals versus 5-5. Magic Johnson is 5-5. What's wrong with 5-5? Drake is 2-2. He got Common. He got Meek. He took an L to Pusha. He took an L to Kendrick. He's 500. It's respectable. And he's still going to do numbers whenever he drops his next record. So don't feel bad for him. And furthermore, don't feel bad for Kendrick either. It sucks that nothing's off limits in a rap battle. I'm going to be very clear about that. Being called a pedophile has got to be really shitty. Being called a woman beater has got to be really shitty. I think people are paying way too much attention to Instagram and why isn't Kendrick's girl with him in New York, and unfortunately, people took that too far, and it has been reported that she's been there with the kids the whole time, and I don't know. Um, I'm not picking either of them. I'm a fan of both of them. I have a ton of music from Kendrick in my Apple and Spotify libraries and my title library. I have a ton of music from Drake in my Apple, Spotify, and title libraries as well. So I'm not picking either one of them. It was good for hip hop. Everybody was on their toes. It made for a lot of entertainment and excitement. I'm hoping that it is truly over. I don't want to hear anymore. I don't know. Anyway, thank you guys for welcoming me back into your phones, your tablets, your laptops, your televisions, your radios, whatever, however you listen. I want to thank you for allowing me the time to, get myself together, get my thoughts together, gain a clear head, gain some perspective, and then take the time to have some fun. I got to go to AEW Dynasty. That was awesome. I got to go to the Blast Blues and Blackhawks game of the season. That was awesome. I'm hoping to get to a Cardinal game sometime soon. Looks like they're kind of turning things around, but it's still early-ish. Um, and I got to spend a lot of time playing a lot of cool video games and stuff like that. So I'm really, really excited about what the future holds. Again, this will be a weekly visit we will have. Not going to be bi-weekly or anything like that. Again, if you're looking for college football weekly in the fall, patreon.com/the Derrick Lamon Experience. The Week in Gaming, patreon.com/the Derrick Lamon Experience. They will live there. The links will be put in the show notes. I'm going to go ahead and end this like I end everything else. Believe in yourself first and foremost, because if you guys don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. As always, my name is Derrick Lamon Jackson. Of course, that is my time. You guys have a good one. Peace out.